Hello, everyone. It looks like we're live, so yeah, hopefully we're live. I never know. It says live. I don't trust it. Just yeah, technology and me don't mix really well. Anyway, we're not here to talk about technology. I was supposed to make this video ages and ages ago. I think probably about a month ago, and due to a lot of circumstances, most of those being pneumonia and pleurisy and sort of not being able to get out of bed or really get dressed with any comfort. I just didn't. And now I'm well again ish. You can probably hear my voice is still a little bit uh, not quite right, but that's okay. I figured this was probably an easier way of doing this because last time I did this talk on 10 ways to finish your book, it was at the Pilgrim Artist Festival. And the input from the people who came to listen was actually really helpful for me to sort of bounce back and forth with. So if you have any questions as we go along or any input, just chuck it in the comments. I will see it. I may not answer straight away. If it's anything regarding the 10 steps that we're going to talk about, I'll probably incorporate it as I'm talking. If it's questions about anything else, still feel free to ask those or talk about them, and I'll get back to them right at the end. So yeah, well, I reckon I'll get started. There's a few of you here already. I know some people can't make it today, tonight, wherever, whatever time it is where you are. So there's going to be a few people checking it out on the rewatch. For those guys, hello. You can't sort of participate in the back and forth, but hopefully it'll be some helpful stuff for you anyway. Like the Lord High Executioner, Coco, I've got a little list. It's not a particularly well-ordered list. It's also not necessarily in any kind of order of importance or anything like that. And it's not, in particularly well enunciated points. So I don't know how useful it'll be for people who are writing notes or who like to write notes, but, we'll go ahead with that anyway. It'll be fine. Okay, so we'll start off with number one. I said this was not in order of importance, but I do actually think this is one of the most important things to remember when you're writing your first book, when you're trying to finish your first book. The most important thing to remember is that nobody has time to write a book. I have so many people come up to me when they know I'm an author or at some event, and they'll say to me, "Oh, I want to write a book. I just don't have the time." And I'm here to tell you that nobody has time to write a book. You don't find time. You make time. It's not a thing of where, oh, I really want to get this done, but where do I fit it into my life? You don't do that. You don't wait for time to come. You have to make time, because if you don't prioritize it, you are sadly not going to get anywhere. You may write a wonderful book and it'll probably take you 20 years, and that's fine if that's the way you work. But if you actually want to get your first book written, if you want to get stuff finished, you don't wait for time, you make time. And I know that's so hard if you have kids, if you have other responsibilities. I know I'm talking very much from a place of privilege, in that I don't have kids. I do have nephews and I'm sick very often, but that's the worst of my difficulties. So number one is, nobody has time to write a book. You make that time. When I was first starting to write, I realized that if I didn't make time every day, I was not going to get my book finished. It was a huge thing for me not being able to finish anything. So I gave up my TV watching time. So at that point, I was working a full-time job or close to it, was something like 34 hours or 30. I was also doing a full load of school, homeschooling, so that was how it matched up with an almost full-time job. And on the weekends, of course, I had to clean my room because I am highly disorganized and extremely messy, or at least I was more so as a kid. I still am now, but so I literally had to find something I could give up, something that I still enjoyed, to be able to fit in writing the book, because I wanted to be able to finish this book or these 4 books that I happen to be working on. So it's a really important thing that you understand that you need to make that time. You're not going to find it anywhere. It's not going to be easy. Number 2 on my list is that extra stuff is just an extra waste of time, and except when it isn't. Okay, and what I mean by that is you need to learn what kind of writer you are. I am a pantser. There are plotters out there. Now, for me, when I was first starting out, what I would do is I would sit down and I would make lists of character traits or characteristics like facial and features and body and that sort of thing, because obviously I didn't know it at the time, obviously, but I was face blind, and that was why I was having such difficulty. However, however much those were enjoyable to make, especially the personality lists, they were just a waste of time. They stopped me from writing, because once I'd set down those things, it was like the character was already down on the page. And then at that point, it was like, well, what's the point? What more do I have to write? So for me, that sort of planning or that sort of organization was very much not helpful. It was extra stuff that was just a waste of time. It was no use to me at all. And it was, in fact, stopping me being able to do the best job of writing that I could do, because it was taking time away from actual writing, and it was stopping me from wanting to set things down on the page. So one of the first things you'll need to do is sit down, or through a process of elimination like I did perhaps, you'll have to figure out what kind of a writer you are. Do you do better when you sit down and plan something out, your character arcs, your plot, anything like that? Do you do better when you do that? Or do you do better to just sit down and write? Once you know what your style of writing is, that is going to help you a great deal. It'll mean that all the extra stuff that's a waste of time, you can just say, no, that's not useful for me. And it will also tell you who to listen to in terms of advice on the internet, because everyone on the internet is offering advice, like me on my YouTube channel, offering advice on 10 ways to finish your first book. But it'll help you filter out the useful information for you personally and the information that is not so useful for you personally. So I personally follow a lot of advice or tips from plotters and that sort of thing. And it's been extremely helpful for me. So yeah, that's our number 2 is extra stuff. It's just a waste of time, except when it isn't. Find what works for you. Kaylee's asking, if you're helping someone write a book, are these rules the same? I would say that they're the same in that that's what you should be advising them if you're not actually doing any of the writing yourself. If you're doing some of the writing yourself, then yeah, I would say that they're pretty much the same. Also, you need to take these into consideration if you're doing a joint project, because you may be 2 totally different kinds of writers, and that's something you need to figure out first. So yeah, otherwise you're probably going to be in for a really frustrating ride. I would always advise to have written a couple of books yourself before you start collaborating with someone. But yeah, that's just my advice. There may be someone out there who has done it exceedingly well, but I would have thought it would be really hard to do that. Carrie says that she identifies as a planter. Sometimes she writes out binders of, and then they do this and that. Yeah, I have done that for about 3 books. And after the first couple of days of following that, I just sort of went off and ignored it. So I've tried, and sometimes it half works. But most of the time I'll write all this stuff down and then I will never refer to it again. So yeah, still very much a plotter. I find that planning does not mesh well with me, I guess. Number 3 on my list is write every day. This sort of goes back to point 1 of you make time. A lot of people will disagree with me online. A lot of people are saying, I have kids, I have this, I have that. I can't write every day. And I'm sorry to say, but if you don't write every day, or if you don't at least make an effort to write every day and to make that your habit, you're probably not going to get your book finished. Again, it's this idea of prioritizing. It's this idea of getting it into your head that this is not just a part of your life, an everyday part of your life, but it's an important part of your life. Like, I guess if you're married, it would be the equivalent of making sure you kiss your husband every day, of telling him you love him every day, and all that sort of thing. It's what you prioritize is what you will get done. It's what you'll excel at. So writing every day is a huge part of that. You don't have to write thousands of words every day. You can just write 100 or 200 words per day. It keeps your mind in that space of, these are the characters I'm writing about. This is the feeling that I'm after. This is the flow that I want from this book. And it keeps you in that mindset. The only times I don't write, okay, I'm supposed to take weekends off. I'm supposed to not work on Saturdays and Sundays. I never do work on Sundays. I go to church on Sundays. I take time to be with God. I take time to pray and be with my family. Saturdays, on the other hand, when I'm not supposed to work, I quite often do. This is because there are some weeks where I cannot focus at all. I have immense problems with executive function. So yeah, there's always going to be stuff in life that means that you can't write that day. Don't beat yourself up about it, and don't be too strict on yourself. But as a general rule, from day to day, you should be writing every day, even just a little bit, even just a little edit around the edges, anything like that, to keep the book fresh in your mind, to keep it going in your mind. It's really important. We've got Carrie saying that unfortunately she plots herself into impossible situations sometimes. Yeah, that happens. Luckily, my brain never stops. You know how little dogs just chew on stuff until everything bursts? That's what my brain does behind the scenes when I'm thinking about other stuff. So sooner or later, it unravels itself and it works out fine. I think the idea with this of writing every day is to find out what works best for you. Again, figure out your good time of day, figure out what's an acceptable or reasonable amount of words per day, and just try and find your routine. Routine is not the easiest thing to do, especially if you're ADHD or anything like that, but it's also very helpful if you can manage to do it. Again, sometimes it won't happen, but yeah, you do your best. Number 4 is also somewhat controversial, and I'm still going to say it anyway because I think it's correct. Writer's block doesn't exist. There are definitely times when you are going to have so much trouble writing. Again, ADHD, there are some times when you literally cannot focus for days at a time, and you just sort of work yourself into this froth of guilt and inability to move, but inability to focus, but desire to work, and then everything's just a huge mess. And it feels very much like writer's block. It feels like you're stuck. You're not usually. It's usually because of either some outward thing like ADHD, or a really bad time in your life, or sick children, or yourself being sick. But a lot of the time for writer's block, it's a matter of working out what's gone wrong with the story. Apart from external stuff like the stuff that I just mentioned, there is going to be a time when you can't write, and we all call it writer's block, but again, I think it doesn't exist. The fact is that you have gotten somewhere with your book that your brain is trying to tell you, no, this is not the right way, whether it's your characterization that's gone off the rails, or your plot's gone off the rails, or you need to plot a little bit more, or just think about it a little bit more. It'll be because you need to, sort out something in your book before you can keep going. So in this sort of situation, the important thing is to remember that, first of all, you need to figure out what's gone wrong. Is it that you are very sick and you just literally can't focus that day, in which case take a rest? Is it because your characters are doing something that they should not be doing? Is it anything like that? Figure that out first. Once you know that, then you can move forward. With me, a lot of the time, it was that my characters were going in a different direction to which I had originally intended. Then I had to figure out whether to go along this new path and just sort of trickle back and fix stuff in the past, or was it something where I needed to change it back to its original trajectory because that was, in fact, the better way to go? Once you've figured that out, you've solved it. You're not going to have problem writing. I see people in the comments saying they have ADHD and it's helpful. Yeah, once you figure out the things that help to get you out of that place with ADHD. Like, I've got so many coping mechanisms that I didn't realize until recently were ADHD coping mechanisms that I learnt naturally as I grew up. So go through all your coping mechanisms if it's that, and figure out what's going to work for you. I'm sorry to say that there are some times that it's not going to work anyway. There are some times when every single one of your coping mechanisms is not going to work, and there's going to be a day or a week where you do absolutely no work. That's just how it goes. And if that's the case, you sort of need to figure something else out. I still don't know the answer to that because I just had a week like that recently, and yeah, it's just a matter of figuring out why that's happened, whether it's because you've switched a medication or because you've gone to this or you've gone to that or you've had a lot of stress in your life. Yeah, just again, it's a matter of figuring out what's gone wrong and then getting back to what you know, which is your book again. Number 5 is on my list is that you should be beta reading for other people, especially at the start. So when you do this, you're probably going to get very annoyed and frustrated because you'll be seeing a lot of things they do wrong, and they'll quite often be things that will irritate you as a reader as well as a writer. But the thing is that once you go back to your manuscript, I can promise you with like 99% certainty that you will have done at least one or two of those things in your manuscript as well. And because you've beta read for the other person, you're going to notice those things in your own book. Everything that you pick up in someone else's book and that you hone your eyes to see, you are going to find in your own books, and you are going to be able to fix them. This is going to cut down on so much time with your editing, whether you get an editor or whether you're starting out without getting an editor. It's going to improve you as a writer so much. It will also cut down a little bit on your pleasure with reading other people's books, honestly, a little bit, because you'll still notice stuff like that once you've honed your gaze to be able to see it. It's totally worth it though, because your books are going to get so much better. So as you're writing, even as you're trying to finish your book, do be beta reading for others, especially in the start of your writerly journey, because it's going to help you so much. Oh, we've got Tulips and Honey saying that me too, they didn't know until they were grown they had ADHD. It's a thing with women particularly, it seems to be, that they don't realize because it presents so much differently to men, and also because apparently women seem to be so much more driven to either hide it or to excel in spite of it. So quite a lot of the time, boys, especially boys with it, because I guess they're told to sit down and shut up so much, they'll probably spiral into more of a chaotic, why bother? Whereas girls are always expected to still be prim and proper. So there's a different expectation. You aren't necessarily told to sit down and shut up. It's mostly, why are you always dreaming? Why can't you do this simple thing? Why have you exploded the custard? Why did you forget about this? And so I think because it presents differently, it's a lot harder to diagnose from what I've heard. I see a lot of city between questions. I will get to them, I promise, guys. Once I get to the end of these, because we're halfway through. Once we get to the end of these ones about writing, I'll definitely answer some of these. I'm just catching up on some of the comments. Oh, some in the comments are talking about Nora Roberts, who writes daily, one genre in the morning and another in the afternoon. Good heavens. I say that, but actually I do that myself. Again, because of the executive function thing, it's very easy for me to find it easier to focus on 2 or 3 or 4 books all at once and write part of one and then part of another on the same day. For some reason, it's helpful. I do tend to go to just one project once I'm right at the end. So there is that, but then I'm not writing linearly as well. I'm usually writing the end first, or, the beginning, the end, and then the middle has lots of bits missing. So, yeah. So we've got to beta readers. Also, yeah, the beta reading thing is also going to help with the, writer's block thing, because you'll find stuff that's dragging you down, that's been lingering in the back of your mind and making you sort of doubt your writing and stop you writing. You'll be like, that's the thing. This writer is doing that badly. I will also fix that in my own writing, and then usually that'll help you to move on as well. Number 6 is bribes are good. This goes back to point 2 of finding out what works for you. I used to have an app on my phone that would give me a timer and an ability to input the amount of words I'd done at the end of that timer and see my word count growing It had a pretty little cover and a description and that sort of thing. That app has unfortunately crashed and does not seem to be able to work again. That helped with not necessarily my competitive spirit, but it helped me to be able to see, oh my goodness, my word count is growing. So that satisfied that. My original way of bribery was stickers. I love stickers. I put a sticker on my calendar for every, 500,000 words I do. So 500 words sticker or 1,000 words sticker, whatever works for you. For me, that's a great bribe. I'm going back to that now. Since I don't have my app anymore. And since I've got an Apple phone, I don't have access to some of the cool Android apps, which is about the only thing I like about Android. Not to get into a fight between Apple and Android, but anyway. So yeah, I will use stickers. I also use things like, if I work for half an hour or an hour, I get to look at my social media or I get to watch a YouTube video. If I finish my day's work, then I get to watch an episode of, K-drama or just one of the shows I'm watching, things like that. Just bribe yourself. Find out what works. If chocolate is the thing that works for you, probably don't overdo it because that's not going to be healthy for anyone, but get your special chocolates so that you can have a couple of really expensive, really nice chocolates with a cup of tea at the end of the day. And there's your bribe. It works really well for me. I don't know if it'll work well for everyone, but I don't think I've ever come across someone it doesn't work for. You just need to find what bribe works for you. Also, at the end of a book, I will quite often, actually, one of my routine rituals at the end of a book or at the publication of a book usually is that I will go out and buy myself something nice to commemorate the publication of that book. Now, last time it was for Between Family, and I bought myself the most gorgeous pair of sort of antique style earrings, onyx and silver with little hematite in there as well. And they're the most beautiful earrings I've ever seen. And they make me happy every time I see them. But it was also a thing of I'm free to go out and get myself something nice because I finished this. I did a thing. And I think you'll find that good in a smaller way for being like, I finished a chapter. I finished the day's work. I'm halfway through my book. Anything like that. Find a place to reward yourself and just do it. It will definitely increase your desire to keep working every day, or at least in my experience, it definitely does. Number 7 is your book isn't going to be perfect the first time. It may not even be good. It's probably honestly going to be garbage. That's going to be true for about 80 to 90% of authors. There are very few people who can write the perfect book the first time they sat down to write a book. It's what your first draft is for. So if you're constantly going back and editing every single day, and again, this is something I've done, it's something that I had to stop myself doing, because if you're going to keep editing extensively each day, like a little bit is fine, but extensively editing each day before you even start writing, you're probably not going to finish your book because you're always feeling, oh my goodness, this is not right. It's not sitting right. It's not feeling good, particularly when you first start to write. Your first draft's probably going to be garbage. Your next couple drafts aren't going to be perfect, but they will definitely help you. And your first couple of books are also going to be much rougher than the rest. So my first 3 books were Wolfskin, which was actually not published first, but my first written when I was quite young. And then you've got Spindle, which was the second, and then Mask, which is the third. They all have issues with them. I love them, and I'm so glad I wrote them, and I'm glad to have them out there, but they definitely have their issues, both writing and character-wise, and even just, they're very imperfect books, but a lot of people still love them because of the ideas. They were all rewritten. Well, Wolfskin was rewritten twice, if not 3 times. Spindle was rewritten twice, once completely ground up, and Mask was heavily edited. So you have to be prepared for your first 2 to 3 books to have a couple of drafts, and for those first drafts to not be particularly good because you're still learning. The idea is to not get bogged down with the fact that they're not perfect, and to try and edit so much as you go that it stops your forward momentum. Just accept the fact it's probably going to be a bit garbage in a lot of places, but that is what the editing process afterward is for, and that is why you set aside time afterward to not even look at your book and leave it in a drawer for, a couple of months to a year, and then come back and look at it again. It's the way to do it. Some of you guys are talking about editing as you go, and comments in the document. Carrie Ann has got a really good suggestion there. She's saying, if you've got a problem with editing as you go, keep a notebook to jot down what you need to change. Don't change it until you finish a draft, and that you can also use comments on the document depending on the program you're writing. All very true. I still do minor edits as I go. I will quite often reread what I wrote the next day, but that's only if I'm trying to figure out where I'm going next or where this book is supposed to be heading in this particular section. I don't get bogged down with the heavy editing I used to be doing because I was so upset that my book was utter garbage as I was writing it. I love Carrie's suggestions. They're really great ideas. I never did that. I just sort of went cold turkey and forced myself to just stop doing that and write the book. But I really like those ideas. I think they're great ideas. Number 8 is that the perfect writing spot doesn't exist, but you can get pretty flaming close. And what I mean by that is that, again, it comes back to point 2 of finding out what works for you. Because for every writer, or almost every writer, there's going to be a time of day, a particular environment, a particular style of working that is going to work best for you and produce the best possible work. For me, that is usually earphones in, music, and a cafe sort of environment, or a good window with a good view. In general, I seem to do better if I can sit somewhere where I can see people moving back and forth. Cafes have that fantastic. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to interact with anyone, but just having the constant movement. Even the babble is good if I don't have my earphones, but I prefer my earphones. So for me also, early afternoon seems to be my best writing time. I can make myself work at other times, but sometimes the routine of being, this is my writing time, I'm going to sit down and write, really works. I also found that training my brain with the music was a great way to go. I learned that if you use the exact same playlist every single time you sit down to write and don't listen to it at any other time, once that starts being in your ears for, about after the first week, your brain automatically switches into work state. And I forget where I learned that. I forget what it's called, but it really, really worked for me. It was like a switch had flipped. So I still do that, but it's not necessarily one particular writing list, playlist. I do find that it's very useful. If you're going to go that route, I suggest trying something without lyrics at first. I'm fine with lyrics, but a lot of people aren't. So Lindsay Sterling is really good for me. Movie soundtracks are amazing, particularly the Pirates of the Caribbean, Sweet Home, and a few others. I really love listening to movie soundtracks. They're great for concentration. Carrie's suggesting to burn a particular candle for each project or drink a particular kind of tea. I drink any kind of tea, and I'm not good with scents, but again, these are really good suggestions. And if you're good with scent, scent is one of the things that also switches things on in your brain. So I think those are great suggestions. Perfect writing spot, it doesn't exist, but you can get pretty darn close. Once you figure out what works for you, you're going to find not exactly a Zen state, because that's not going to happen if you're a writer, but you will get to the point where this is making things so much easier for you. Number 9 is that your brain is going to get tired. You need to be looking after it. If you're wanting to be getting this book finished, if you're wanting to be able to make the best use of your bodily resources, I guess you could say, you're going to need to look after your brain. It's going to get tired. You will need to get physical exercise as much as you possibly can. When my treadmill was not broken down, I quite often would do a couple sessions of, half an hour to an hour of walking, to just get me up out of my seat, which is, not great for anyone to be sitting for huge amounts of time. Um, you can, we've got a cross trainer now, but I'm very not good with cross trainers. They use up too much of my energy. So I do have a little dog now, though. So taking him out to the toilet helps with that as well. Just, get yourself up, get yourself moving, do a little bit of exercise. That's definitely going to help you. You will also find that a good way of resting for your brain in particular is just consuming other media. So watch your favorite movie or a new thing that's delightful, read a book, take a day off, find your perfect tea that matches with the perfect cheese and biscuits, which I have found, and that makes me very, very happy. Watch stuff that's fun and stupid, read stuff that's fun and stupid, or if, watch stuff that's fun and clever and amazing and learn from it, but just let your brain have a rest. You can learn from stuff and still be enjoying things. That's fine, but give yourself time to do something that isn't writing and let yourself have a day off every now and then. So yeah, it'll help your brain, it'll help you feel fresh, and it'll, I don't know, enthuse you for getting back into the writing again. Okay, so number 10 is going to sound a little bit weird. That's because it's coded particularly to me, and that is to take lots of showers. Now, what I mean by that is that I do my best daydreaming in the shower. Apparently, there's something about falling water, the sound, the smell of water. It's just really, really peaceful, and I go into my little daydream state and then forget that I'm supposed to be getting out of the shower and use all the hot water, which is not wonderful. But it means that I daydream a lot. It means I give my ideas time to percolate. It gives them time to work themselves up into proper ideas and to come out into proper ideas. So if you're getting stuck on your book, if you're not sure where to go, just let yourself daydream. Let yourself think about it. Find yourself your spot that makes it easy to think about other things or your book, and just to dream about it the way you used to dream about it before you started writing. Let yourself fall in love with it again. Just find that space, find that area that makes it really easy for you to daydream and to let your thoughts wander, because that's going to be one of the best things for getting the book done that you can possibly do. So that is the 10 things. If you have any questions about those or any input for those, thank you for the input, guys. You've had some amazing suggestions. And then I'll start going back through the chat and looking for questions about any of the other books, or any other writing related questions that you guys have put down. Oh, Kaylee's asking, what is my favorite type of tea? Okay, so I have a couple of favorite types of tea. It just depends on the time of day and my feeling. All of them are T2. Australia has a brand called T2. They're fantastic. So my morning favorite, and usually my standard, is French Earl Grey. I love it. It's a little bit light and aromatic, and it's a little bit brighter than your regular Earl Grey. That goes really well with just a bit of milk. I don't have sugar in my tea at all, but I have milk in that one. Another of my favorites is Go Go Goa. It's good for pretty much any time of day. You can have it with milk or without. Depending on my feeling, I'll have it with or without. It's like a caramelly and hearty sort of pseudo chai mix. And when you have it without milk and without anything in it, it pairs really well with little Kinder bars of chocolate. And I usually have one or two of those every now and then, usually as a nighttime treat. But if you're feeling like you want some comfort, I usually put a little bit of milk and a little bit of really nice honey in there, and it just makes it a really comfort drink. My third one is a sticky date tea. That one I have with a little bit of milk, and then I get myself some very nice crackers and some very bitey Cracker Barrel cheddar cheese, which is different from the American Cracker Barrel. It's a cheese brand here and nothing else, and a little bit of Shiraz and plum paste, and that pairs perfectly. So that again is one of my dessert options that I have. And then I have just a plain green rose tea that is just delightful to have every now and then, and very, palate cleansing, I guess. Is a very pleasant tea to have. So if I'm sick, I quite often will have that one because there's no milk in there to exacerbate any inflammation I may have. So yeah. I'm going to start going back through the chat and look for some questions about anything else that wasn't to do with writing and getting books done, and I'll get to those. In the meantime, write any further questions you have and I'll get to those. I'll probably keep going for another 15 minutes. I'm supposed to be going into Hobart later to meet up with someone, and I have to make sure I make it back before about 3:00 because it's going to snow quite heavily on the mountain pass that I have to drive through to get back home. So I have to make sure I actually get home in time to, not get snowed out of my house, which would be not particularly pleasant. But, oh yeah, I have a plan for tonight. And I need to go into Hobart also to get those things. I'm making some songpyeon, which is Korean rice cake type things. They have them at Chuseok, but they also have them at different times of the year. When I was in Korea, I ate them a lot. I really, really love them. I wasn't sure how I was going to go with being able to make big in Australia. It is in Korea. I love the taste. But I found in the health store you can get nettle, powdered nettle, and the smell is very similar, so I'm hoping it's a suitable substitute. I do have to get the glutinous rice flour from an actual Asian grocery store, though, because Woolies used to have it and they no longer have it. So, I'm very sad about that. But that's my afternoon plan. Get home before it snows, make songpyeon, eat songpyeon. So, yeah. Right, now we'll go through questions. Oh, Amber's saying that they saw some of my older pics on Instagram and feel like they took a mini trip to Korea and that they love the hanbok. Thank you. I love that hanbok too. I wear half of it every now and then for different things, and it gives it a different look. It's a very versatile piece of clothing. I also go back and look through my photos from that time and feel very homesick, which is very unusual for me. I'm usually getting very homesick when away from Australia. It's the first time I've been homesick for another country. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back next year if I can. Kaylee asks, in the city between, did Atlas marry Pet's great-grandmother Anne? No. I will answer that outright as a no because it's not terribly spoilers, but it also doesn't tell you what relationships Atlas may or may not have had, but I will say no, he didn't marry her great-grandmother. And Honey's talking about, oh yeah, over there it's 7, or it's probably getting close to 8 p.m. on the 23rd. Yeah, it's the 24th here. It's so weird. Still, I know how the science of it works, but it's still very weird to me that I can be in a different place and someone's experience a totally different day. Carrie's saying, good luck getting spoiler questions answered. Yeah, I won't answer all of the questions, or I'll partially answer them like I did with the one higher. What was attacking Mr. Preston in book 4? It's not exactly a spoiler. I'll have to come back to that one day, maybe with a story or two. I don't know. It was a kraken that was attacking him. They're just not as large as you expect them to be, and they're a lot more sneaky. I don't know if you guys know much about octopuses. They have very, very sneaky things, and so are krakens. It's very hard to keep octopuses actually contained, I've heard, because if they've got lids that unscrew or things like that, they'll literally learn how to unscrew them or lift them off and just go for nighttime rambles, and I love that so much. So yeah, it's a kraken. Okay, that's the one about helping someone write a book. I'm still going through the chat looking for these questions. City between book questions, so many. Oh, and one asking, is Pet half human, half vampire? That one I won't tell you the answer to. You'll find that out in the final book. Anyway, I think I've made it fairly clear, but because of the way I write, a lot of people could consider some of what I've written to be red herrings. So yeah, good luck finding out which is which until I tell you. We're talking about Nora Roberts in the chat that I've got up to. My goodness, that's terrifyingly productive, I think. Carrie Ann mentioned she was in a flash fiction group where they monthly wrote from a single prompt and then traded critiques. It was helpful. Yeah, I was in a writers group that did that for a while, and it was very, very useful. Writers groups are a good thing to find at the start. Just don't take everything people say to heart, because I've been in so many where so many people have told one person who's wrote an amazing piece of fiction, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, according to their personal preference. And the thing they wrote was already amazing and should not have been changed a single bit. So use them for what they're worth, but also don't take everything to heart. You're the final arbiter of what you take on as criticism to actually change your work. So if you don't think it fits, don't use it. Don't pay attention to it. Later on, you may change your mind, but in the meantime, just allow yourself to be the final arbiter and don't take everything on board if you don't think it matches. It's good to learn to sift between the two things. Everyone's saying that rewards are great ideas. Yes, I love it. Editing as we go, candles. We already talked about the perfect tea and cheese combination, or at least for me. Kaylee's also asking, who is my favourite character in The City Between? I'll tell you that at the end of the year, and we'll see how we go with that. I have a few favourites, but I have one particular favourite. I love all of them, of course, but I do have one favourite. I shan't tell you just yet, though. Catherine says, another vote for T2 French Earl Grey. Yep. Oh, Black Rose I haven't tried yet. I've got the Green Rose, and I love it a lot. We've got a very worried-looking emoji attached to that, which is wonderful. Double Bergamot Earl Grey. I have not tried that. Sounds lovely. I think I'm starting to catch up with these. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to actual Hobart. I live about a 40-minute drive away. It's a wonderful place to go. It's got lots of, compared with a lot of other countries, it's not terribly old architecture, but it is old architecture, and I love it. It's really great to see. Oh, Carrie asked, have I been keeping up with the Silmaril Awards, and that Pet has won 2 already? I knew she'd won 1. I didn't know she'd won 2, and that Les had won 1, and that Athelis came in second place. I did know that. If you guys haven't checked it out, check out the Silmaril Awards. They have little stories that go along with the presentation of the awards. They're not the most accurate in terms of the characters. I think one of them had Pet flipping her hair and dancing forward, which was a very interesting choice. However, the rest of the story, so much fun. Also had Eowyn, which is delightful. I did not know Pet had won 2. So I enjoyed reading those and had a little bit of a laugh, and also, it was just a lot of fun. So check those out. The authors who do those also have their own books, so check out the books as well, because you're probably going to find something you'll like there. Okay, people are liking the Kraken. I will have to work one into a story at some stage. Kaylee wants to know what happened to Ezri's parents, or parent in the city between. Oh, I'll have to write some. I don't know. Maybe there'll be room for a third spin-off that's just about characters' backstories from the human group or something like that. We'll have to see about that. Oh, okay. So apparently Pet just won the most impish character. I'll have to check that out. Those stories were really fun to read. 100% accuracy aside, which would be so hard to do with someone else's characters, they were just fun to read. I'll definitely have to check those out. Okay, so I'm getting toward the end of the time that I have, and it's getting steadily colder and darker here because snow's coming in. Yay, it's meant to be spring. I'm meant to be able to watch the cricket on the telly, and it's snowing. I'm not happy with this. I would like the summer to come, please. So I'm going to start closing it up. If you've got any questions more that you want to ask, just pop them in the chat and we'll give it about 5 minutes more. I'm going to hope that when I do my little experiment with the songpyeon this afternoon that they don't explode. I've heard that when you steam them, they can explode. And if it's going to happen to someone, it'll probably happen to me. So I'm really, really hoping not. Catherine says she's looking out the window and getting slightly nervous about the weather and getting back home in time. Yeah, so that's why I'm fully dressed, guys. Yeah, I'm in my fancy clothes. I don't know if you can. Oh, you probably can't see fully. I've got my very fancy skirt and my very fancy top. So yeah, I like to take the opportunity every now and then to get dressed up when I go out because I don't go out very often these days. So when I go out, I'm like, yes, I will put on my fancy tweed skirt. Yes, I will put on my nice little, what's this thing called? Jumper. It's not a jumper. Cardigan. It's a cardigan. And yeah, flowers in my hair and earrings and that sort of thing. So, all right, guys, I am going to head off. Thank you so much for turning out to ask questions and to make suggestions. You guys have great suggestions. Yeah, I will. Oh, someone's mentioning Paris tea. I've got that. My sister got that for me for Christmas. It's got this nice little vanilla taste to it, which is just delightful. Okay, so yes, I'm going to head off. Kimberly's asking, may there be a future video about cooking Korean? I'll probably it's not video. I'll probably record some of the process of the songpyeon 만들기 and maybe put it up on YouTube or something like that. In any case, there will definitely be pictures whether things explode or whether they don't. And I'm hoping they don't explode. But yeah, I will see how things go. And yeah, once I learn how to edit videos, it's more likely that there'll be more of those up on YouTube as well. So right, I'm heading off. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to try and beat the snow. See you guys. Thanks for coming out.